Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest podcast on planet Earth. As voted by Tommy Kerr, he said it himself.
Yeah.
Greatest podcast, and Chris Hemsworth as well.
Yeah.
So it's crazy right
What
now.
can you really do right now, man?
Now this is the Uncovered podcast with Nick and Femi. It's your boy Femi here.
Yeah. And it's your boy Nick, and yeah, man, it's an exciting time for.
It's a very interesting,
time
right now, and I think that we've got someone on that's going to talk about his perspective on such an interesting time and our perspective on an interesting time.
Sure.
But obviously, if you're living under a rock, you don't know what's going on. Something called COVID-19 exists, and it's really kind of taken over the world really dramatically in the last couple of weeks. Actually,
like, we've never seen anything like this, like this before, which is crazy. So I think it's very new and fun to us, and I think it's gonna allow us Aussies to really delve into the inner strength and warrior that we have. So it's gonna be sick, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Let's say that. It's gonna, but we'll see. We'll see how we all go, how it all plans out, and a lot of businesses are being affected by it. So all my prayers and love are with them, 100%. A lot of our friends are really feeling the effects of it. So just wanted to say that. But back to what we're talking about today. We got the former professional football player, business owner. All around SK, all around sick guy, man. We got Mr. Tommy Kerr here. What's going on, bro?
Good, boys. Good to be here. I've got one thing to say before we kick off. I mean, look, that's the kind of mood we're all in, Like at the moment, I just cracked a beer for those who can't see.
What beer with sponsors though?
Shout out to Dennis Kemp at Bloke in a Bar. But, he's got a podcast too, anyway. But
second best in the world.
Second best rated by me. Pleasure to be here, guys, and looking forward to diving deep into some topics. I think you said it. We're going through a difficult time at the moment, and hopefully, something I can share will give people a bit of perspective about how to overcome adversity in challenging times. And we've never faced a period like this in our lives. It's foreign to everyone, but the best message we can send out, is that continued love and support for each other.
Yes.
I'm very passionate about talking about mental health, and a lot of people are going to suffer over this period. So 100%. We want to make sure we're checking on people regularly. Just reaching out, seeing how they are. It doesn't take much. It's a text, it's a text away. Even though if we can't physically be there for people, we can emotionally and also, in some respects spiritually as well, So just said, sending out prayers and sending out positive intention, no matter what your, religious background or, belief or faith is, this will unify this country and world more than anything has ever in the past.
Well, 100%.
And I just wanted to say, man, I saw what you did on Instagram the other day with the whole kindness and giving for the elderly. I think that's so powerful and sick, and it's a good message for everyone that's listening right now. I mean, that you can go such a long way from just expressing kindness and giving to those that really need your help and support right now. So
thank you very much. Really sick, so I'll touch a little bit on that, because we did have the Today Show down here. And they didn't, because they had a number of different people and people that were influencing their area as well. We didn't really get the story out and how it came about. So on the Sunday evening, it was I had to hear from my mum, who's a 70-year-old widowed woman that had to drive through 3 different supermarkets to find toilet paper. And I came back to work, and we opened up the conversation with some of our staff here, and Brittany is amazing, got a heart like Far Lap, and she basically came up with the idea and just wanted to do something for the elderly. And it was an amazing, when it just came out, it was an amazing thing, and an act of kindness and compassion that we all backed so hard. So it's been amazing reception to see, not only the engagement it got and the exposure it got, nationwide, but especially just affecting the area around us and the local community. We've had so many donations, people just coming in, dropping left and right bags of supplies and whatever they don't need. And we've had a lot of elderly people and vulnerable people as well, not just like people who are, going through anxiety and stress at the moment. People aren't capable of leaving the house as well, sending people up to get some supplies. It could be injuries or whatever, then, they're immobile at home or... So we were pushing that message out. It wasn't just for the elderly, although that was our focus. We wanted people who were, in that vulnerable category to come up and take... Because, man, we've seen some really selfish acts, the media have driven that. And, we've seen people, how they've reacted in, fear. And it was shocking to see. So, we set the platform as, something that was kind and compassionate to give out to people. And, the credit's been, it's been a very amazing thing to watch unfold. But also, too, just bringing that positivity and that human spirit back into people, more calmness and just, instilling that into people's minds and sharing, exactly the right way to act, that we have pushed out there in times like this. It's not about, division. It's not about, selfish hoarding. We've all got enough to go around.
Exactly. Sure. Exactly right. And I think that what you've said is so important, especially in this time, and especially any time of adversity. It's really been able to embody that level of calmness and composure and being able to really have a grounded knowing to be able to support people around you as well. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to go through it. John Smith down the road, he doesn't need 50 million, toilet rolls and packets of chips.
Right? And could you imagine that, those people that were fully immersed into this hoarding sense of being, and, let's say this was to pass over in a few months' time, man, and they've got 50 cars
and then
in their garage just going, holy shit. What have I done?
But it's fear. I think it's such an important thing that what you said is that people make such rash decisions based on fear. When we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know, it's like that. It's still that anxiety. People are still feeling so anxious about it. It's I might not be able to wipe my ass for the next 6 months. Do you know what I mean?
And it's a serious worry.
Bro,
it's a serious worry.
You could use that. Literally, a leaf, bro, at times it got desperate, man. I would not hesitate.
100%.
But I'm saying, food and whatnot. Yeah, you can make a case, man. But
the toilet paper thing.
Toilet paper thing is just out of control.
Out of control. Come on, man. Look, I heard Charlemagne said it. He's look, if you've ever been broke, that has never been your concern, bro.
Never been
You get some freaking newspaper, wet in a pit, some paper, bro, you're good. Or just get some water.
Move on.
But look, I'm telling you, it's crazy. The world that we're living in is crazy. But we're not here to just talk about that. I think that's got more than enough attention. But I think that your story and who you are is such a beacon of hope and transformation. I think that's the only way to really describe it. And I want people to really have the opportunity to get to know you, get to know your story, get to know why you're such an example for that.
So just to elaborate on that, I have definitely had times that have been, more than challenging for your average person, I'd say. But look, the way I see it now is I use everything, all my experiences, as a platform. And obviously I've, in the past, I've been in situations that have been undesirable, and I've actually, have actually caused things or events that, have had lasting impact on people's lives. So I think that's the biggest thing that drives me in terms of, seeing the people that I've, personally affected, and have just now got this drive just to constantly, help others. And it's been, a challenging transformation because, a lot of the things that are associated with where I am today have been through suffering and trauma. So I'm constantly working on myself, and to be the best version of who I am. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect because it's false.
Yeah.
But every day I wake up and I'm just driven to, you know, wellness and health and, you know, the sense of being able to be a key influencer in that field, and especially of mental health, because it's something I suffered from and continue to do so. You know, it's mental health, we all have it, and there's never going to be a time where we don't experience some kind of mental health. You know, I found myself at the back end of last year trapped in this whirlwind of emotions and just these feelings of in that, you know, very sense of the word, overwhelmed about how much I was taking on.
Yeah.
You know, I just started a new business, which I was driving out, not just for sports recovery or beauty services. It was to create another platform to do some of the other things that I'm doing now in the community and for the community.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I can use the name Cure. I can leverage that. I can leverage the profile that I've you know, been trying to build up, and, you know, really offer it out there to people and offer some of my experiences as a means and a way of helping other people overcome, you know, adversity, overcome challenges. And, you know, if anything, you know, that's exactly the pathway that I've found myself on and see myself continuing to do, especially more than ever during these times.
Yeah.
100%. And I really love that, because I feel like a lot of people like really benefit from experience and understanding people's story.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one thing to be able to get the theory and understand, it's like, oh yeah, just do this. But then some people will be like, well, my situation's quite different.
Yeah.
You know, I've gone through a lot of adversity, a lot of hard times. It just feels like there's no way out.
Yeah.
And you've been an example showing your story, showing that, you know what, you can do it. It really opens the minds to a lot of people, which I think is truly, truly beneficial. So I really just want to kind of delve in. I know you mentioned a little bit at this time that you're going through a lot of events that had like longer lasting effects on other people. Can we kind of like delve into like what that was, how it came about, where it kind of stems from, what those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, and look, my past now is gone beyond, you know, me trying to hide or cover anything up. Like, it's out there, people know now, you know, it's been published in the media, it's, you know, I mean, I guess the biggest thing was, you know, growing up, I had this idea of, you know, where I wanted to be, who I wanted, what I wanted to do, and that was rugby league. That was my life. Okay, so I went through all the junior systems, and, you know, up to the point where I was, you know, 18th man for the, you know, just in that, you know, frame for a shot at the Sharks type, you know, when I was playing at Cronulla. And, you know, it was a thing where I had people telling me, you know, you're very close to getting your opportunity, and that's where I just completely saw my future, you know, and it was just about to take off.
Yeah.
Okay, so it went from, you know, training with, you know, the NRL players to playing a trial match, and was really, you know, young 20-year-old kid at the time who just thought he had the world at his feet, and ended up getting actually flying over to New Zealand and playing in a game in the reserve grade over there, and I ruptured all 4 ligaments in my knee.
Wow.
So effectively that ruled me out for, it was supposed to be a minimum of 12 months, and it ended up being closer to 2 years.
Whoa.
Return to the field, which was an absolute, in my opinion, it was a miracle in itself, because I just had setback after setback. But I was so proud and accomplished, you know, that achievement that I accomplished there. So I came back and, you know, played a few games back at another club, and ended up rupturing another 2 ligaments in my knee. So effectively that was it for me, you know, season. And I think that point in my life is when, you know, I was just completely lost, and, you know, I was still very young, you know, early 20s, and just didn't really know what I was going to do or where I was going to end up. And all of a sudden, you know, the mental health stuff really started to take over. So I fell into anxiety and depression, you know, was drinking and gambling and partying so much that it was so toxic. The environment, you know, the people I was surrounding myself with, like all of this was something that really just consumed me and my life and the pathway I was going. And, you know, from that, I found myself in trouble, you know, with the law. There was a few occasions where, you know, I found myself in front of a judge and a magistrate, and, you know, was very lucky, probably in some circumstances not to being sent to prison any earlier than when I was. So I think, you know, that whole, you know, sense of party, drugs and alcohol and stuff like that was something that became an issue for me. And I guess back then, like, I didn't have my own education about what it was, how it was impacting, not just me, but everyone else around me, family, friends. And I managed to, so I did go through a stage where I was actually medicated for anxiety and depression, and that was probably the first turning point where I realized I needed to do something. And that was my first introduction to meditation, actually. And I was kind of finding myself, I was still working in an industry that I was an online bookie, and it definitely wasn't an industry that was suited to me. You know, anything I do, I give 100%, man. And I actually worked my way up, you know, I would say bluffed my way up from a trading assistant to a senior trader in less than a year. So I was just committed to it. You know, I didn't have a background in finance or anything. A lot of guys did, been to uni and stuff, but I was a people's person. I knew how to kind of work that, as well as just be committed and just listen. You know, when anyone was telling me, my bosses and seniors, you know, what to do, I would just listen. That's it. You know, a lot of people don't. They think they know, you know, and they'll challenge or whatever, and it just rubs people that are, you know, more experienced than you up the wrong way. You know, and can effectively hold you back. So, so I found, you know, during that time and period, and especially, you know, once I was medicated for these, you know, antidepressants, I, you know, as I said, realised I needed to do something and change something. Physical health just wasn't enough. I've always been fit and active, but I needed to start working on my mind. So I even, you know, I got to the point where, you know, was getting off certain things and whatever, and just trying to do my best with, you know, transmuting, you know, and just, you know, going from, you know, that negative and setting myself on a positive pathway. And I ended up getting to that stage where I was just I had that introduction into meditation and self-help, and was starting to commit to certain practices. But that all kind of came to a massive, you know, abrupt halt when I had this huge accident in my car. I actually was driving to work one morning after working a long shift, and I crashed my car into 6 cyclists on the road. So I wasn't drunk and I wasn't on drugs. I was just so tired and run down, and, you know, I was burning the candle out, so to speak. You know, I was definitely running on fumes. When all this transpired, I was, you know, I should have known better not to probably drive that morning, seeing I was, you know, in that state. But I didn't feel like, you know, there was anything kind of, you know, different in terms of, you know, I'd never ever blacked out or had a microsleep at the wheel before. So I didn't think anything of it. Like, I didn't think, I just thought I'd drive to work, I'd be fine. But it was so freakish the way it happened. And I just don't believe things are, you know, I just think everything as much as it's a cliche, everything happens for a reason. I truly believe, in this statement. And so, yeah, I had this, tragic accident, and as a result, I did 18 months on a bail, period where it's effectively a jail sentence, man, because you've got this thing hanging over your head. You feel like you're trapped, and I feel like during that time, I just wasn't as immersed. Like, even though I started into this, self-actualization and self-realization pathway before the accident, I felt like I fully couldn't give myself up to anything because of what was happening externally with my surrounding, with my situation. So that's one big lesson, that I always, look back at is, spending that 18 months on bail and, not being able to fully live to my, true, authentic, and I guess, my true, authentic self, and it was just a period where, I still was, on the surface level getting into it, but it wasn't until I got sentenced that the real inner work started for me. So, and I say this openly, I don't sit here and say I've been hard done by for an accident. I sit here and say I served, what I served. People that were involved in the accident have lifelong injuries, and I was so fortunate that no one was killed. I've tried to reiterate 1,000 times that it was exactly that. It was an accident. It was not done intentionally. And for the most part, I haven't had a lot of contact with the people involved, but that's the message I'd always send, is to for me, I would always welcome that opportunity to talk about the whole experience and situation with them sometime, but yeah, I sit here and I say honestly that it could have been a lot worse, and I'm so fortunate to be here right now when there was that chance that it could have been a lot worse.
100%.
So you look at it from a perspective with perspective, and and also the fact too that there were a number of things incorporated that led to me getting sentenced in the manner I was. So I think as much as the media did drive it and make it kind of an example showcase to implement new laws around Sydney about keeping your distance between motorists and bikes, that was all necessary, because there were a few instances after my accident that this was happening quite regularly, even though the media did pick it up a bit. I sit here with no regret, and no, I don't say I was hard done by. It just is what it is. I went through it, and I look back at it now as the most transformational experience of my life.
Sure, yeah.
And I say that from my heart, that now I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not gone through all of that. All of that.
110%. I think it's a really powerful point. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, of the necessity of going through trauma and understanding your trauma and being able to acknowledge that and move through it, because that was the game changer. It wasn't actually the trauma that caused you to be able to transform. It was your response to the trauma, which was really, really powerful, because I think there's a lot of people that go through really difficult situations that are not where you're at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and definitely that's a great point. I just think for a lot of people, there is that whole sense of playing the victim card.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't think, I think once you accept what's happened and accept responsibility, it's so much more powerful, and you take yourself to a different state of mind with it. So you've accepted that, the situation you're in. It's essentially just giving it up, and it's releasing, it's releasing that trauma. And yeah, as I said, it's such a powerful, way of dealing with something, and I think a lot of people, they just aren't, I guess, receptive towards taking that acknowledgement and sense of accountability.
Yeah. So obviously life's been a bit of a roller coaster for you, man. So you've gone from flying high rugby, that crashes down with the ruptures, then you had to get medicated, then you had your accident. Like, walk me through, like, what was your mindset there? Like, what was your mindset when you got to that point? And walk me through everything.
Okay, so let's start back from my rugby league, experience, and how that, first of all affected my mental health and state of well-being. So I guess, I've been over this, but that was my life. It's all I saw for myself. And when that was taken away from me, I found myself in, a situation where I was developing toxic habits and bad habits. And I guess my mindset wasn't always clear with my decisions because I was always, influenced it with alcohol or drugs or whatever. And, for me, that was so unstable. And for the next, period that came, I ended up getting to this kind of this breaking point where I just had so much anxiety and stress, and I basically was just lost, man. Like, I just didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know who I wanted to be, and I felt like that just affected my mindset so much to the point that I crashed.
Yeah.
So I ended up, going to seek a bit of help, and ended up getting medicated on antidepressants, in which, I spent a period of time, fluctuating, massively, between mood swings and I guess not being able to properly filter out emotions.
Yeah.
So I was like, and all guys do, man.
Yeah.
It's like we take too much on, and we push it down as far as we can get it.
Yeah.
But man, it's just like trying to push a basketball down in a pool, bro.
Yeah,
Pop back
exactly.
up out of the water, eh? Eventually it's going to come out. So, I guess my mindset was really unstable, and I just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So once I did go and seek that help, I went through, doctors and counselors and stuff, and it got to the point where I was taking medication, and I guess from that experience, I never felt like myself. Still, it did help. It did balance me, but it was something that just didn't feel good or right to me, So, and I started reading into how harmful some of these things are to the brain and stuff. So, essentially, I ended up getting to the point where I was looking at more of a holistic approach at mental health, and in a way where I could, take myself off that medication and do, more alternate practices like meditation and yoga and stuff like that. So I guess, that was my first experience into that world of self-help. And I felt when I started that journey, things started to change for me, you know? And it wasn't until I had my accident one morning that that all kind of got thrown upside down.
Yeah.
It did in a way, I'm not saying I fell away from it at all. It was more of the fact that I probably wasn't, I able to comprehend some of the things that were happening in my life. And a lot of the times I was just living out of fear and stress. Yeah. So even though I did manage to get myself off that medication, but I still found it challenging to commit to practices and, to really have a positive, or to the most effect that it could have had for you. You know what I'm saying? So then I guess that mindset changed again during that 18 months because, just at a time where I started to feel a bit better and like as if my life was changing, I had something that happened that was just blew my mind, And for that next 18 months that I spent on bail, it was just like, everything in my life was I just felt stuck. And that made it, it was the most challenging time, I would say, in my life that I'd experienced up to that point. And I just did the best I could, with the situation I was in. As I was saying, it was something at the time where I didn't feel as though I was going to prison. I felt like everything was just going to be okay. They would see it my way. And, I was essentially involved in an accident and I was very shocked at the result that I got, but I'm not here to say it wasn't something that hasn't been the best thing that's ever happened in my life in terms of the person I am today through the experiences that I went through.
Yeah, for sure. And you did like you said, you did an amazing job in actually going through it because it's tough. Like, you feel like you're going one way, you're trending, then out of nowhere, boom, put you back down. And I think like the good point that you said was that level of self-acceptance and owning it, not being like, oh, I'm the victim here, oh, this shouldn't have happened my way, yada, yada, yada. It's like, you know what, this is the situation, this is what happened. And like, whether or not I'm happy or not, this is what it is. And going through that. And obviously after now that you've done you went to prison, you served your sentence, you've come out now, you've done some incredible things out in the community. Like, talk to us about that transition. Like, you're in prison, it's all seeming a bit low at that point.
So I had some really positive influences in prison. The chaplain was one of them. And he really did give me a different perspective, on how to do jail early in my sentence. And, I was actually in a Muslim wing for a long time. And this chaplain was of Christian faith. And, it was amazing to see how, I guess, all of that inside, like, we're all in there together. Just like now, we're all in this together, you know? And I had positive influences from both sides. And for me, I was exposed to some of the, I guess, harshest criminals there are out there. And, they say jail is a breeding ground to be manipulated and actually to get out and want to commit further, offences and crimes. And it was difficult, but I had to attach myself to more of the positive influences, the chaplain being one. I wasn't of Christian faith, in there. As I said, I was living in a Muslim wing, and a lot of those boys there were so accepting of me and looked after me in there as well. So I had more of a spiritual, I'd come from more of an open belief, a spiritual belief. I guess I was very neutral. But I was willing to learn, different belief and faiths, and I found it amazing to actually see my impact that I could have on some people, including Christians and Muslims and stuff, when I would talk about meditation. So it was all about, promoting that sense of relaxation, calming the mind, detaching from thoughts. And I guess a lot of them were receptive towards what I was saying. So it didn't become a religious thing at all. It became a well-being thing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the pathway to wellness started for me in there, looking back and reflecting on that. But yeah, the main thing that I needed to do was work on myself, and I was obviously, willing to help others, but at the same time, I kind of had to put shields up because it opened the door to talking about their problems and to talking about crime and stuff. And, in cases, you absorb a lot of people's energy in some instances, and you want to help, but sometimes it's kind of toxic to kind of to immerse yourself into that conversation or to open that up and talk about those kind of things. And I try to keep it as positive as I could, So I did, a few courses in there. I did some positive psychology. I did a wellness coaching course in there, just whatever was on offer and whatever I could do. And amongst all that too, I practiced gratitude and affirmations. I did as much meditation as I could. I'd go out in the yard, every now and then and do some yoga. I just wouldn't do a downward dog, but look, it was the timeline in my life where I had no option but to go within. Yes. And I had no external factors influencing me like I did when I was on bail, which what made bail harder in some areas, Look, I'm not saying being on bail was harder than prison, because obviously I did have some freedom outside. But in terms of just having to get on with life, like I had my fate drawn to me. So I just had to continue living, the best way I could, be positive, not only for myself but my family, and essentially just survive. So I guess, looking back, it was 18 months. It was 18 months of, overcoming challenges daily. It was 18 months of, practicing the inner work. It was 18 months of releasing trauma. Not to say I came out, perfect by any means or enlightened, but I did help myself a lot, and I just had so much clarity that, this is the pathway that, helping others, and also, getting myself involved in health and wellness was where I wanted to be. So